For this demo, I'm going to walk us through a pretty simple process to take a pretty unassuming flat vector illustration and try to add some of the depth and form that we can often find in a Photoshop image without learning a lot of the complex tools and the techniques that we are going to learn in advanced Photoshop stuff. And they can often feel very intimidating to beginners. So I'm going to show us just the simplest way to add some visual interest here. So here in Adobe Illustrator, I'm just going to create like the simplest little illustration. So I've got a circle. Let's put a cube back behind that. And a cube in this instance is going to be made up of these three surfaces. For a little depth and atmosphere, let's put a little background. And then again, just to finish this off, we'll add a little foreground. Okay, so I just have, you can see this like as simple an illustration as we can get. It's only made up of 6 shapes. The entire thing is only 6 little shapes, all with rectangles and circles. But we're going to make it into something a little bit more visually interesting now. So I'm just going to select everything and say edit copy. Now I'm going to go to Photoshop. And in Photoshop, I'm going to edit and paste. Now in this instance, I'm going to paste my image as pixels. And I end up with this. This is that same little illustration I created in Adobe Illustrator, which was a vector. Now it's a raster image, which allows me to do some really interesting things here. The only 3 tools pretty much in this little demo that I'm going to be going through are the magic wand tool. The magic wand is a selection tool, and if we click on the magic wand, you can see if I click here, it selects just that circle. If I click in the background, it selects just the background. This surface, or this surface. And you can adjust the tolerance up here at the top to select more or less fidelity to that selection as you like. I've just got it at 10, and it seems like it's working just fine. So I'm going to select my circle. The next tools I'm going to be going over here are the dodge and the burn tool. And the dodge and burn tool are from old photography darkroom terminology. And dodging is where we make an object lighter in the darkroom by taking away some of the light that's going to hit that photo paper. And burning is the opposite. The burn tool looks like this little hand with a finger and thumb curled up on each other. This makes things darker. So dodge makes things lighter. Burn makes things darker. I'm going to come up here to my brushes, and I'm going to put my brush, let's put my brush at 124 pixels. That seems like a good size brush for what I'm going to be doing here. So I've selected this with the magic wand. Now I'm going to use my dodge tool to start, which makes things lighter. And you'll notice when I click that it's making this lighter. And it's already starting to look like a sphere. Right? In this instance, my light is coming from the upper right-hand corner, diagonally through my picture. So I'm going to make that be the lightest part of the whole sphere that I'm drawing here. To add a little bit more depth of the shadow, I'm going to come to the burn tool. And you can see how that makes it darker. Burn makes it darker. Dodge makes it lighter. Now I can come in here and I can even do some much more sophisticated little things. I could make a little selection here, like this. Maybe feather that selection. But that's up to you. And then you can come back and maybe even with the dodge tool, make a little of this reflected light. That we would see on a sphere. Alright, so I can start to get this to be as nuanced as I want. Okay, I'm going to use the magic wand again, and let's select this surface. Now the sphere is going to be casting a little bit of a shadow against there, so I'm going to use the burn tool. And it just casts a little shadow onto my cube face. And I can add some depth just using that dodge and burn, darkening it in some places and lightening it in other places, and I create a little depth on that surface. Magic wand here. And we're going to do the same thing. My burn tool, let's make this darker. This is the darkest area of my cube face. Maybe I want a little bit more contrast from the background up in this area. So I'll take my dodge. Make that a little lighter. And we can see how much depth it's starting to get in here. Okay, let's just go ahead and do the top one, even though that's really, really light up here. Just because I think it'll add a little bit more depth, like I was saying. Add a little darkness. Since the light's coming from up here, maybe it's just a little bit darker here in this back corner. Like this. Okay. My background. Let's make my background darker. I'm going to set my tolerance a little lower this time. Try it. There we go. All right, so I'm going to make my background darker. In this case, I'm going to use the burn tool, and maybe I'll make my brush a little bit bigger. And remember when I made this upper left-hand corner lighter? See how that makes that really stand out and have like a really beautiful contrast here? So I can add this nice depth, and it looks like nice reflected light happening in here. It's like really beautiful. Okay. Even do a little bit on this foreground. Take my burn tool again. Maybe just add a little bit of atmospheric depth into here. Okay. Now I've got my objects here, and they're going to be casting shadows. They don't have any shadows on the flat tabletop, so let's just go ahead and draw some of those in. Okay, so I have this shape. I can then use my burn tool and begin to burn in some shadow here. Now, one thing we know about shadows is they dissipate the further away. from the object they get, so I can let it get lighter and lighter as it moves away from that object. All right, so it gives me a lot of depth going on here for my sphere. It's going to be casting a shadow, so it's going to have a slightly different shadow shape. Okay, let's do that, and then I'm just going to deselect this portion. All right, and I'm going to do the same thing. Burn tool. Let's just add a little. Shadows are always the darkest right up against the object, and then they get lighter and lighter the further away from that object. All right, so I've got this little image now, right? And it already looks so much more rich and with a lot more depth than we had in the vector. But now that it's in Photoshop, I can still do more things to it. I could apply different filters. A really interesting filter to make this maybe look like a charcoal sketch or something would be, let's select it all, and I'm going to go up to my filters, and in this case I'm going to come down to noise and add noise, and look what's happening. It's starting to look like it's got paper texture, and the tooth from paper and graphite are charcoal on here, and I can of course adjust this to be as much or as little of that noise in here as I want. That's it. If it's a Gaussian blur, this is a uniform blur, so we can do all kinds of interesting little things with it. Let's put it here, and let's make this a 4.5%. Okay, and I end up with an image like this. Already, so much more interesting than we were getting with our flat vector shapes. These are just a couple of things that we can do to make your illustrations have a lot of visual interest and depth to them. Again, we only used 3 tools in this toolbar, except for the selection tool. We only used 3 tools in Photoshop to make this happen. Really, really simple. Hope you found this a little bit informative for you, and give it a try. Dodge and burn are a couple of tools that a lot of people kind of forget about even exist in Photoshop. So have fun with it, and we'll have more later.